typically underneath the front float bag, I would keep the portage wheels. There were a couple exceptions due to wind where I might flip-flop the front and the back just so that the weight was a little different, but on most days the wheels were up here. So I just gotta unstrap the float bag here to get those out. And those will just slide on back. These were fantastic. I used these on most of the portages except for a couple really short ones. So watch this, okay? Hopefully the video captures this. As I get it going. Look at that. That can go along. Look, Mom, no hands. No hands. It's the little things. That just excited me. I'm pretty impressed. I lost. They were originally both of these little turn attachment nut thingies. Were both painted yellow. I lost that one. We replaced it with one from a different set of wheels, but on the trail I actually made do with some rope. So that's why the rope's there. That's my little on-trail repair, and I actually was able to tie it in. Generally, while it's in the boat, I'd have just a quick Velcro tie holding this all together. That comes off, and the wheels just kind of fold up like so. It comes with these little knobs. They just screw off, and they have this little flat piece of metal here that receives that nut, and then that just kind of, the knob just screws back on the trail, and then just kind of, not super tight, but you know, secure. On the trail, I ended up losing one of these on the tramway carry. It started out the carry on, but at some point it broke or fell off, and I didn't notice it and couldn't find it. So I had this extra cord in my boat. And you have another cart with the same size knobs and screws, so we had borrowed that. But on the trail, I did not have an extra. So what I did, I went ahead and still put this little flap of metal on, like so, and I realized that all the metal was doing was putting, you know, sideways pressure on this flap. And so I thought if I could just tie this rope around there, get good pressure pushing towards the wheel. And I know some knots, but honestly, all that I did was just kind of a regular shoelace knot, double knotted. It worked. And that actually did enough pressure to hold that wheel in place through mud and over roots and rocks. It does wiggle some. And obviously you could pull it off, but it worked on the trail. So just make that nice and tight, get that pressure going. Make sure your wheels are still going straight. It has a kickstand that makes it a lot easier to get the boat on it. And then these are the two areas where the boat actually sits on. When we got the cart, it came with these, I don't know if it was real leather or fake leather, but it's some kind of leather type material that just soaked up water. And so we ended up just getting some simple swim noodles and using some twist ties and some Velcro to attach that, a little bit more cushion for the boat. and will dry out a little easier. It held up okay. It could probably use new swim noodles after the 10-15 miles that I portaged things, but it held up just fine for my trip. These also, these two little stands will fold down if you need a lower clearance. When everything's folded up, they just fold over. But then you'll want them up, of course, to actually move the boat on it. Just have little pins to keep that in place there. Once you got everything on, then you just want to kind of kick that kickstand up. It helps to not have the boat loaded before you do that. Make sure your straps are nice and tight. And then we kind of try to have them a little offset so that you're kind of pulling on both directions. So the rear strap pulling back, the front strap kind of pulling forward, so that you get kind of equal pressure on the wheels. Definitely want to make sure that the straps are nice and tight so that the wheels don't shift as you're pulling, particularly over logs or roots and stones. If they're not nice and tight, the boat can actually shift sideways. And then if the wheels are not kind of facing the same way as the boat, that puts a lot of extra pressure on those bearings, a lot of extra wear and tear on them. As you'll see, particularly when she's unloaded, she moves really, really nice on those wheels. Got a lot of maneuverability for turning, aside from the fact that the boat is super long. She moves really nice even when loaded with gear. So a couple things that I really like about these wheels. One is how much ground clearance they have, how high they are. Previously we had canoe carts with much, much shorter wheels, maybe half the height, if that, and they didn't have nearly the ground clearance. So you'll see a lot of these portage trails have decent sized roots or rocks that you have to wheel over. If you had a different cart with shorter wheels, you're actually going to have to unload your boat, pick it up. You're not going to be able to wheel nearly as much as I was able to with this cart. Also, those wheels are airless. In the past, we've had problems with wheels actually getting holes in them and losing air, and that's not an issue with these. They're really durable and tough, and you don't really have to worry about getting punctures or having to pump them up with more air, anything like that. They do, however, need some adjustment though before you start using them. So you want to double check these nuts, the ones between this little metal plate and the wheel itself on both sides. Make sure that they are adjusted properly. If they're too tight, the wheel will bind and it won't roll or spin freely. So you definitely want it to roll nice and easy like that. If it's kind of hanging up and jerky, then you definitely have them too tight and you'll need to loosen them. Once you get them to the right tightness, you'll want to use some Loctite in between the bolt and the nut itself to keep them in place. You'll also want to Loctite the nut on the outside of the metal bracket as well. Pretty much any nut you'll want to do Loctite. Not on your knobs though, because you want those to come off, but the rest of the nuts you'll want to Loctite. So also when you're spinning the wheel, it should spin nice and freely and not hang up, but you also want to make sure that it's spinning nice and straight, that you're not having a lot of wobble side to side. If so, it's too loose. It's really critical that you get these set up properly before you leave. You really don't want to be taking a bunch of tools to be messing with this out on the trail. And if you're like me, these wheels get a lot of abuse. A lot of those trails have a lot of rocks and roots, and you think you're not going to wheel over all of that, but believe me, the end of a 15-mile day, you might want to. So they get a lot of abuse, so it's really, really important to have everything right. Not too tight, not too wobbly, so we're not adding any mechanical stress onto what we're actually doing in the environment.